I started ETN. I started DJ Moore. Well, I had a good year. Oh, my best team. They all just took a big Christmas dump today. But anyway, just terrible. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. How we doing?
Look at me. I'm going to sing.
How we doing, David, Jamie?
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're doing great. Christmas spirit is alive in all three of us, and hopefully to everybody watching and listening around the world, and hopefully everybody was a good boy or girl this year, and you got what you wanted, which is a ticket to the fantasy finals.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
you know what?
hopefully you got that.
So much to still be determined, right? We have 3 big games coming up on Monday, so I'm sure a lot of people are in limbo right now. But if you're watching, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. If you're just listening, thank you for taking time out on your holiday to listen to our show. We really appreciate it. And we're going to start with our biggest winners and I also tried to write a Night Before Christmas poem, but I only got 6 lines in. So, yeah, and the dog doesn't want me to read it anyway. So, but maybe I'll. David has muted his. See, Dave is usually at the office on Sunday night, but I needed to go late tonight because I was having a Christmas party. So Dave and Jamie are up late with me, and I appreciate that. Anyway, biggest winner. Well, I'm just going to give the biggest winner for everyone, and it's Amari Cooper. Oh my gosh. He was started in 73% of leagues, which is a little wonky because, a lot of people have been eliminated, but Amari Cooper has his 4th 200-yard game of the season, and it's 11 carries.
No, that's incorrect.
Of his career.
Right.
It's 11 catches. Yeah, well, you know what I did?
You drank too much eggnog with some stuff in it?
I erased the most important document that I have, and I put
your marriage certificate.
I put today's show notes on my Week 16 document, which is a huge blunder on my part. Absolutely terrible. I lost 20 hours of work. Oh, no. So that really sucks.
Oh God.
And I'm freaking out right now. So I'm going to see how many times I can hit Control Z to try to make everything come back. But anyway, Amari Cooper, guys, your thoughts on 265 yards, 2 touchdowns at Houston?
So far we have a dog barking, and you lost all of your notes.
This is terrible. Oh God! All right.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
I say we
vote for
start
us for podcast of the year.
Yo, I enough wondering about what to do with Amari Cooper. He's certainly susceptible to having a bad game, but the way that Joe Flacco's throwing, the way that the Browns are leaning on him, and the way that he gets a lot of targets, I think he's a slam dunk wide receiver 2 for the fantasy finals.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him next year. I think we obviously have to start at this point looking ahead to what 2024 looks like. And can he do this with Deshaun Watson? And will they allow him to do this with Deshaun Watson, mostly from Deshaun Watson's standpoint? So I hope it's not a situation where, as he's getting closer to 30 and the quarterback change impacts him in a negative way, but we'll probably overlook him again. We'll probably rank him too low again, and he'll probably deliver another solid season.
He's actually entering a contract year next year. And before we get on to next year, he does play the Jets next week.
It doesn't matter.
I tend to lean the same way. Yeah. I mean, it's really not the best situation, but
you're not sitting him at this point.
I think you'd have to be loaded at receiver to sit him.
Yep.
He'd have to have Dorian Thompson-Robinson as his quarterback to sit him. Yep. That's his kryptonite. All right, so who's the biggest non-Amari Cooper winner? I know who the biggest loser is. It's me. But
it's obviously Breece Hall.
Breece Hall? All right.
Yeah, but we were starting Breece Hall anyway. I don't think there were many people that were like debating starting or sitting Breece Hall unless they were just like, again, loaded at that position.
I'll go Baker Mayfield.
I got a lot of Breece Hall questions. I'm sure you guys did too.
I got a few, but not. I don't know, not enough. I don't know what his start percentage is.
To your point earlier in the week, Adam, there are teams that are really loaded, in 12 and 10 team league playoffs, and there are teams that had some issues. The teams that had issues were certainly not benching Breece Hall. The teams that were loaded might have. So, I mean, look, if we're gonna put Amari Cooper at that level, we got to give Breece Hall his flowers for what he did. I mean, he was absolutely exceptional. 12 catches. Dave and I had the conversation, and I know we were just debating players. It wasn't that Dave didn't like Breece Hall, but the one critique you brought up was what he catch passes. And oh boy, he did.
Yeah. Turns out he can and did. Yes.
Yeah, and again, spinning it forward, this makes you feel really good about him as a potential top 5 overall pick next year. Certainly a first round pick.
I mean, do you
with Aaron Rodgers and his list of demands about what he wants, he doesn't want a new running back, but he certainly wants a better offensive line, and that will allow Breece Hall to fulfill his destiny as we saw last year as a potential league-winning running back week in, week out.
Yeah, but right. So any hesitation with him because it goes from at home against one of the worst defenses in football to on the road against one of the best defenses in football at Cleveland next week.
Again, not benching him. Certainly, I have him in 2 leagues. It looks like I'll advance in both, and no chance on benching Breece Hall.
Right,
and that's to put it in perspective, 2 10-team leagues where one I have McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and Breece Hall. He'll be in my flex spot, and the other he'll most likely be my number 2 running back along with McCaffrey.
Dave, you have a winner you want to give?
I mean, it's got to be Gabe Davis. Everybody was starting him, waiting for this big, huge moment, and he came through. And no, I'm not going to go with him. I kind of want to go. I want to go to Stafford, and I know that he didn't play today. He played on Thursday, but another great game. His arm is sensational. He's got a great receiving core. I know Kupp didn't come through, but it's a good offense, a healthy offensive line. And I think they're going to continue to be certainly willing to chuck it downfield. I think that that's an important factor, that they're not going to get conservative just because it's late in the season. Obviously, they have a lot to play for. This is a team that nobody wants to play in the playoffs. They're getting hot. It was asked at the office today during the games. Zach Brook asked it, who's the team that could take down the 49ers in their first playoff game? And I thought it would be the Rams. They always play him tough. Stafford's healthy, and he's playing well. And we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, and we said he was still out there in free agency a little bit. It was more in the shallow leagues, but we told people pick him up because the schedule's going to be great. You can ride with him. He can be your starter. And that's where we are with him. I mean, he was just as good as Justin Fields this week. He was better than a bunch of quarterbacks this week. I think that he's absolutely in line to be pretty much a must-start fantasy quarterback. He's a winner.
Stafford is at the Giants next week, and as of now, he is QB 7, I believe. Carr 1, Flacco. Look at this. This is insane. Carr is QB 1. Flacco is tied with him. Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford.
To be fair, Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, they all play tomorrow.
Aiden O'Connell.
DeVito, yeah. No, I get it. All right, but another big day for Flacco, so that was pretty fun too. Biggest loser, Jamie, who you got for the biggest loser?
My start of the week, Ken Walker. He was terrible. Just a dud from the Seahawks for 3.5 quarters, really. I don't know what the hell they were doing. Give the Titans credit for how they played them, but it felt like Seattle was not ready. And Adam, your question earlier in the week, West Coast team, East Coast time slot, that might have something to do with it. Here we are again. But Seattle was bad. Ken Walker was bad. I was really hopeful when they got down inside the 5, I think it was. With
late in the game.
And it was Zach Charbonnet, and as opposed to Ken Walker, I was like, I mean, come on, give me something, But yeah, Walker was bad. So I haven't had a dud start of the week like this in a long time. And this was frustrating to see. The role in the passing game, that must be a Drew Lock thing at this point. So 2 games with Drew Lock, he was great. 8 targets, 7 catches. Gino's back, and you see the numbers here. 1 catch, 2 yards. So frustrating for Ken Walker across the board.
I was really upset to see him. I know what series you're talking about where Charbonnet was playing inside the 10. It was actually 3 of 3 snaps inside the 5 for Charbonnet. It felt like it was the first time this year where Walker wasn't even getting like a sniff near the goal line. Like I talked about it when we talked about Walker this week, just, consistently this year when he's been healthy, he's been their guy inside of the 10-yard line, and 5 touchdowns from down there. Was hoping for that. Was hoping for a couple of breakaway runs. I think you're right. You've got to give credit to the Titans defense for stepping up. They were missing so many starters, and we just kind of wrote off all these guys. I think Otis Reese, I think his last name was this awesome linebacker for them. It stinks. He got the work. At least he got the carries. I don't know if he got the catches, but a dud for sure. And now people are going to question, like, there's going to be questions all around with Kenneth Walker.
Well, I guess I gotta say, because you're talking about late in the game when they got inside the 5-yard line, he will pretty much never play in the 2-minute drill. I mean, that's just
Sure, but this is
Yeah,
late
but
in the game. If he's their best running
that
back
point
for
in the
that
game-
situation, you can put him in then.
At that point in the game, they were trying to slow down the game and run down the clock. And I thought,
Yeah, were they?
yeah, because they didn't want to give the Titans a chance to get the ball back.
Sure.
They had to score, but they didn't want to give the Titans a chance to get the ball back. So the fact that they ran the ball twice tells you that was their plan. And so you would think, okay, you could have easily brought a different package in and let Walker be on the field.
Do you think the Steelers' run defense solved itself this week?
No.
No.
Well, then you
No,
might
but
feel
they
okay
lost
starting
another-
Walker next week.
That's another linebacker too.
They did. They lost Landon Roberts, so we'll see how that goes. But Walker's got the Steelers in Week 17 at home.
Who's your biggest loser?
I'm going to go with Sam Laporta. Must start tight end. Fantasy managers were counting on him. We saw the Lions put up 30 points on the Vikings. That's a good defense that they racked up numbers against. Not only did Laporta have a bad game, he only had 3 targets. So that's someone that's really going to make fantasy managers frustrated. Not the type of game that we wanted to see. Not the type of game we've really ever seen or rarely seen from Sam Laporta. Although I do think it's 2 of his last 3. He's kind of underwhelmed a little bit. I don't know if I'm ready to question him and take him out of my fantasy lineup in the championship. I think so. He's taking on Dallas next week, and I kind of think that's a game the Lions can win.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that game.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just say ETN. Well, but we'll get to him in a second. We have Megaduds. It was a bad day for the Jacksonville Jaguars for sure. We'll tell you about the injuries as well. Please vote for us. Go to sportspodcastawards.com. Click on vote now. Go to the fantasy betting and sports gaming category, I believe it is, and vote for fantasy football today. It is so quick. It is so easy. And we'd really love to win this award. So I know a lot of you have already voted. Please vote. I'm going to show you here on YouTube how easy it is. You just go there. It's, again, sportspodcastawards.com. Click vote now. And then the best fantasy betting and gaming podcast. There it is. Vote for fantasy football today, and we'll be your best friend. It'll be a nice Christmas gift for us. Trevor Lawrence left with a shoulder injury. He will not practice on Thursday or Friday, and then he will play. He never misses a game. But, yeah, he left with a shoulder injury. He played horribly in this game.
Yes, he did. His line did not do a good job protecting
They were
him.
getting destroyed when he left.
Yep.
Yeah, it could have been that for sure. Jacoby Brissett replaced Sam Howell again. Did any word on? I'm sure he was asked about it.
Ron Rivera was non-committal, but how do you go back to Howell at this point?
Yeah. And Brissett's been good 2 games in a row, but he gets San Francisco this week. Jalen Waddle left with a shin injury. Jordan Addison left with an ankle injury. DJ Moore left on the first play, basically, or the first series, at least for the Bears. Then he did come back in the game. He had a terrible game. Do we have a snap count on DJ Moore?
I'll get you one.
He was in and out when I was watching in the second half. Dontavian Wicks, he got you what you needed. He had a good game. Well, he scored, and then he left with a chest injury. TJ Hawkinson left with a knee injury, and Cole Kmet left with a knee injury.
Right. Hawkinson was ruled out pretty quickly. That's not a good sign. DJ Moore, 50 of 67 snaps played. So played a lot of snaps, ran a lot of routes. Well, I'll be able to check the film to see if he was slower than usual.
And also for the Vikings, edge rusher DJ Wanham and cornerback Mekhi Blackman left. So not only did they lose a really important game and came down to the wire, it was a tough game. Sorry, Shaver, but it was tough. A lot of injuries as well.
And they didn't have Murphy at cornerback coming into the game. So definitely a softened up Vikings defense right now.
I did see 2 Falcons offensive linemen left.
Yep, Matthews left with an injury.
And Lindstrom was evaluated for a concussion, so don't know their status. But next week they get the Bears, so tough run defense. You're going to want those linemen back for the Atlanta Falcons. Pittsburgh linebacker Landon Roberts left with an injury. I spent all week talking about how that Texans pass defense was so much better with Jimmy Ward. He left with a concussion in the first quarter. I don't know if he came back. I don't think he did.
I don't believe he did either.
But, like, oh, they're so much better, this and that, and then he barely played. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back, and we'll talk about the Megaduds. If you're still competing into week 17, not 18, we'll give you some early waiver wire pickups, And we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. And early waiver wire. Look, it's obviously you're competing against one other person. So not so urgent to talk about this now, but does anybody come to mind for the waiver wire?
Herbert.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert. Wow. That was, man, really thought it was going to be Roshan.
He does have the Falcons next week.
Doesn't matter. If there's no Deontay Foreman, he's a borderline starter
Okay.
across the board.
I'm just laying out the tough Falcons run defense. They finally got punched for some touchdowns today, by the way. Jonathan Taylor had one.
Yeah, just one, right?
Just one.
Took him 3 tries from the 1 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And the Titans finally gave up a touchdown to a tight end.
Oh, how about that? As
Yep,
the
2 streaks broken.
streaks end.
Colby Parkinson.
I don't know about Cedric Wilson.
If Waddle's out
If
Waddle's out.
against Baltimore, nobody's starting him.
Yeah, I don't like his chances there.
Durham Smythe also had a good game, but again, nobody's going to start him. Okay. Well, this is basically it for the early waiver wire.
Michael Wilson, potentially, if Marquise Brown doesn't play, they get the Eagles.
Yeah, what about quarterbacks? Flacco, like, are you going to trust Flacco against the Jets on Thursday?
It's a revenge game.
If you're at that point where you're still streaming quarterbacks, yes, you're going to trust Flacco. Like, I would trust him more than Mason Rudolph. I would trust him more than Jacoby Brissett. I would trust him more than CJ Beathard. You know, any of these guys. Nick
Sure,
Mullins.
but take it a step forward. Like, you're going to start him over Mullins. That's fine. What about Browning?
I would start him over Browning unless Chase plays.
Okay.
Browning's
That's
at
fine.
Kansas City. I
Right.
like Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith's 78% rostered. He gets Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this should have been a layup game tonight too.
Well, he had, what did he get? 21? 21 points. And look, it wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. Got better in the second half for Geno Smith, but he ended up with 21 points.
And I will say this, we spent a lot of time. First, we got to see if Minka Fitzpatrick's back. I think the Steelers may have found something with Patrick Peterson at safety.
Yeah, that was a surprise, a minor surprise that they actually went to
he played
Peterson
there against the Colts when everybody left.
Sure. I'm surprised that they let him start there and play there again, and then they opened up their other cornerback spot to Levi Wallace. But it was good. It worked out for them.
All right. All right. Well, that's an early look at the waiver wire. Let's talk about some of the mega duds. Ugh. What is going on? What is going on with Stephon Diggs? 5 catches for 29 yards on 8 targets at the Chargers. I've run out of excuses. It's New England next week. Jamie, what do you think is the deal with Stephon Diggs, and is he still a starter?
Against New England, yes, he's still a starter. He's just not a top 15 wide receiver. We'll see what happens with Michael Pittman. Is he able to return? We'll see what Jalen Waddle's status is. We'll see what Jamar Chase's status is. But if you advance with Diggs, depends on who else you have. Rashee Rice is easy. DK Metcalf is easy. Nico Collins, I think you got to go back to him at this point. He played well today. Obviously, Mark Cooper. So any of these guys that are playing at a high level, despite a tough matchup, you start them over Diggs. But I'm just trying to think like where I'll rank him. Probably somewhere around 20.
Stat without context. He's had a 38% target share each of the last 2 games.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, now do you want the context?
Yeah.
Josh Allen threw 15 passes 2 games ago and 21 passes against the Chargers. So if Josh Allen's volume is going down, it's not really that great to have a 38% target share because it's still, decent targets, but not like 10, 12. And
No.
it's a lot of short stuff. It feels like short stuff for him. I do think that Josh Allen will have to throw more against New England. Just, hunch that the Patriots run defense.
You also got to wonder where they're at with James Cook too after the fumble, and then they didn't throw to him at all, which was so weird because it's been working so well.
Yeah. Well, even still, you would expect more than 29 yards on 8 targets for Stephon Diggs.
Of
Oh,
course.
of course.
Last week, 48.
48 yards on 4 catches.
It's not bad. 4 for 48 on 5 targets is
That's
not
12
bad.
yards per catch. You expect more than that from Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, but it's not bad. But this was just a bad game for him.
Definitely better than 5.8.
This was the layup. I mean, no weather concerns, terrible defense.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And they're very conservative now. It's working for them.
He only ran 18 routes. Am I really reading this right?
Yeah, I kept seeing him come off the field too.
Yeah.
Not like a ton, but I don't know. It's ugh. Okay, Travis Etienne, 6 carries for 12 yards, 3 catches for 19 yards at Tampa Bay, and a bunch of times I'm just sitting there watching, going, "Where is he? Why is he
Hang
not?"
on. Can we go back to Diggs for a second?
Yeah.
Just on a lark, I happened to watch his first catch. Do you remember his first catch against the Chargers?
No.
It's a little screen pass, a little short pass. He catches it, and it looks like something happened with his neck. Like he laid there for a few seconds after the play.
Yeah, maybe he's hurt.
He might have gotten hurt on that play, and that might explain his snaps. But he still had a ton of targets. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, no. Some people are saying James Cook is a dud. I've seen that. Look, Cook got 20 carries. I know it was disappointing. I know he didn't catch a pass, but he had such a great role. At least you got those carries. With ETN, you got 9 touches in this game.
He'll bounce back next week.
Next week's Carolina, right?
Carolina.
No
Hopefully he does.
All right, fine. Sam Laporta, we already talked about. And
how about Devon Achane?
That was my next mega dud. Achane and Pollard in the same game. They both scored about 4 fantasy points in full PPR. I think Pollard was 5.3. Achane was 4.1. Mostert, I don't know. I don't have the snap count day, but Mostert was in and out. He got hurt. He wasn't playing toward the end. Jeff Wilson was playing toward the end. So this was a big opportunity for Achane, and he did not take advantage of it. And neither did Pollard, really, with 13 touches at Miami.
And Pollard played 70% of the snaps, dominated third downs, had a majority inside the 5, just could not get going. The Dolphins' run defense is pretty good, as it turns out. / Pollard isn't that good.
Well, I don't know if there's much to say.
Stopped throwing to him, which is weird. They were doing such a great job with it.
Achane or Pollard?
Or Cook?
Pollard.
All 3 of them, right? Achane.
All 3 of them. I mean, Achane, how many targets did Achane end up with? It wasn't that many.
3. 1 catch, 7 yards on 3 targets.
Yeah. It's strange. And definitely, I think he got a little lucky if you started Raheem Mostert. He scored the touchdown. He played only 9 snaps after the first quarter. 9 of 51 snaps after.
Well, I mean, he got hurt.
Yeah, that's why.
It's you wonder. You mentioned Adam. The end of the game, their most important clock killing drive to set up the field goal was all Jeff Wilson.
Yeah. Fresh.
Well, that's right. And that's really the question with Achane. Is there, as we have 1 game left in the season, is there any way he's really getting a huge workload?
And it's Baltimore next week.
Unless Mostert's out. We come into the week and, Mostert, did they ever say what the injury was? I don't think we ever got a report what the injury was.
It looked like it was something
lower leg. Yeah.
Yeah, ankle or calf.
Right. Did he sprain his ankle and then it flared up and it got worse? Did he, tweak the calf and, issue? I mean, he looked
Could
fine
be out there. I don't know.
But, if it's his knee and something, so, if he's out, then it's hard to get away from Achane as at least number 3 running back.
Would you consider Wilson ahead of Achane?
Not unless there was something seriously wrong with Achane.
Okay.
But would you consider Wilson if you're desperate for a running back? Maybe.
But that's back to your waiver wire segment. That's another guy to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at the leaderboard here. Usually we do our winners and losers, but why don't we take a look at the leaders for Fantasy Week 16? We'll look at the top 5 at each position. We'll start with Derek Carr and Joe Flacco. They threw 40 to 42 times, well over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns for both of them. I mean, that's the thing, Dave. It's 40-plus pass attempts every game for Flacco, and this was for the most part, it was a blowout win.
He left the game.
Yeah, he left the game and had to come back in.
Jordan Love with one of the best games all year against Carolina for any quarterback. Josh Allen, and then there's Bryce Young and Matthew Stafford, and Justin Fields actually was there as well with 25. But certainly Carr, Flacco, Love, they really stand out here.
Carr had to throw a lot in the game against the Rams. That's what a lot of quarterbacks do against the Rams, at least in the last month and change. Against Tampa Bay, he'll probably do the exact same thing. So good matchup for Carr. Absolutely someone that you could put into that consideration as a low-end QB1.
Michael Thomas may return.
Yeah, that would help.
That's
definitely
maybe, but just something to keep an eye on there. And then the nice thing is, though, we spent a couple weeks talking about this. What his production has been with Taysom Hill's role reduced. I think that's the biggest thing for Derek Carr. It's like not coming off the field as much, getting more short area opportunities near the goal line. And look, Chris Olave played through apparently a bad ankle injury. He said that to at least one member of the media, that it was tough for him. So hopefully the extra rest will help him. But Tampa Bay is rolling right now. It's a huge game for both these teams, and you hope that Derek Carr comes to play.
All right, we'll take a look at the top running backs from Fantasy Week 16. I know Breece Hall is going to be at the top of that list, and let's see who joins him. Breece Hall with 42 points, Jahmyr Gibbs with 24 points. I mean, what a gap between 1 and 2. Derrick Henry, 22 points, James Conner, 21, and Bijan Robinson had 19. So I didn't lose the bet by that much. I got a top 5 running back out of that, Jamie. But
it's true. Hey, listen, that's a win. Both guys were good for people who started him. Bijan should have had a better day. He had an easy touchdown and just couldn't figure out how to get his feet in bounds. Just
yeah.
So I took a little bit of heat on Twitter because I thought that was mostly on Heineke. It was a terrible throw. It was late. It was slow, loopy, and it was behind him. He could have done a little bit better job with his feet. But even the broadcasters said it was on Heineke. At least they said, wasn't that throw a little late? And it said, yeah. So, but he was wide open. He's got to anticipate that route a little bit, not just wait for him to be open and then throw it. That was bad. But yes, he should have had a touchdown catch. He had 7 catches. I think he led the team in receiving, Bijan Robinson. But yeah, I don't know. Does anything stand out here, Jamie? Hall, Gibbs, Derrick Henry, James Conner. I mean, sorry. 5 catches, 67 yards.
Involved in the passing game. We haven't seen that, and that was nice to see. His rushing production was fine. That was my concern if he didn't get a rushing touchdown. So he got, I think, his first receiving touchdown in the season. So, I don't want to say you got lucky because he's been productive for the last 2 weeks, but you got a little lucky with how it got done. So Connor was a very solid number 2 running back this week.
Connor got off to a great start running the football in the second half. He started to get grinded down a little bit more. You got very lucky with Connor because the touchdown came from 16 yards out. You don't see that very much. The Cardinals had no snaps inside the 10 against Chicago. So any of those possibilities of him getting a short yardage touchdown wouldn't have happened otherwise. You needed that catch and touchdown for James Conner. I'm just happy that he led the team in catches, or not led the team in catches. He led the team actually in receiving yards, 67 yards on 5 catches. I think that's important because one of the narratives coming into this week was, well, he's not doing anything with the catches that he gets. He did a little bit with it, but nothing like this. This was a good opportunity for him to show that he can still make plays through the air.
Yeah, and I was the game I watched the most of was Lions-Vikings. I had that on the whole time. It's a really fun game. I know Montgomery actually had 2 more carries than Gibbs, but it really felt different today. It really felt like
the goal line opportunities were all there for him.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of the game, it was Montgomery, but then just at the end of the game, it was Gibbs, not just there, but just in general. And he was so good. He was just in the freaking zone.
And the fact that he fumbled too, that they stuck with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, obviously he's a must-start guy, but it's a possibility that he can get 15 plus carries on a weekly basis, and that would just be huge in your fantasy championship because he'll do so much with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the one thing that's been missing with Gibbs is that surefire workload. That it kind of wanes a little bit, but his playing time had been ahead of Montgomery's for the majority of the last few weeks. I want to say
since Montgomery
3 of the last 4. Yeah, that's fair. Since Montgomery came back, and they each had 3 snaps inside the 5. There were 6 snaps inside the 5. Gibbs had 3. Montgomery had 3. Montgomery scored on 1 touchdown. It's Gibbs all the way. Like, he's clearly their better back. They understand that now. No doubt about it. Top 10, if not top 6, 5, if Mostert's hurt. Fantasy running back for week 17.
All right.
I take him over Mostert even if he's healthy.
I'm going to share.
I mean, it is Dallas. It almost doesn't matter with Gibbs. You're right. Montgomery's the one you got to be nervous about.
Let's share a screen here. And let's take a look at this poll. Who would you rather have in Dynasty, Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs? And I put this out during the games today. And of course, Gibbs, 64% of the vote. Jahmyr Gibbs, 882 votes. But it's funny because I was thinking about that today. There was a small faction of draft analysts that liked Jahmyr Gibbs more than Bijan Robinson, and people that I respected and it made me convinced me to draft Gibbs in the 3rd round. I don't think it's so crazy. I mean, he really looks that good. He looks like a superstar. I don't think it's that crazy. Who would you guys rather have in Dynasty, Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs?
I want to see who the new coach and quarterback is in Atlanta because I think that matters tremendously. If they get a better play caller, that will allow Bijan to be Bijan as opposed to, hey, let's give Tyler Algier too many touches, or let's force Cordell Patterson on the field, or hey, I just don't feel like playing Bijan right now. So right now it feels like it's easy to say Gibbs, and not prisoner of the moment type thing, but because Bijan's obviously coming off a good game. But I hear it every week because Rick Spielman and Pete Prisco, I watch games with them all the time, and Pete yells at Rick, I like Gibbs better than Bijan last year, and you said generational running back, blah blah blah. So they get into it. It's like Statler and Waldorf, and but I mean it's a great debate. It really is. But Gibbs with Ben Johnson and Bijan with Arthur Smith feels like Bijan's at a disadvantage.
And so that's another point. Who's going to call the plays for Detroit next year? Will it be as seamless as it, as we're hoping that it will be, and that Gibbs continues to dominate playing time? And I think that ship sailed. Gibbs is going to be the main running back as long as he's healthy. Hopefully the offensive line stays a strong point for Detroit, but it will be another year older. We don't know who the play caller is going to be. I think here's where I would come out on it. If you had Gibbs in Dynasty, there's no way you would give him up for Bijan straight up. And if you had Bijan in Dynasty, I bet there's a decent percentage of people that would take Gibbs. And so I don't want to do the prisoner of the moment thing either. But if it's Arthur Smith for another year in Atlanta, I think you got to go Gibbs.
Okay, let's take a look at the top wide receivers from Fantasy Week 16. Guess who's number 1? Amari Cooper's number 1. Guess who's number 2?
Mike Evans.
No. He didn't play today.
Oh, George Pickens.
Oh, yeah, Pickens.
George Pickens. 4 catches, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua is number 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4. And then we have Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, and DJ Chark all tied.
They're all better than T. Higgins, too?
They're all better than T. Higgins.
25. So is Justin Jefferson. So basically, Ridley, Evans, and Chark scored 27 points. Jefferson scored 26. This is all non-decimal. And Higgins scored 25 in PPR.
I want to just give Justin Jefferson some credit. There was a 2-play sequence in that game where if anybody questioned would he come back from the hamstring and how much did it matter to him, contract, all that stuff, Nick Mullins fumbled. And Justin Jefferson came out of nowhere from running his route to behind the line of scrimmage to recover the fumble. On the next play, Nick Mullins threw a hospital ball that should have killed Justin Jefferson. He goes up, he high points the football and takes a shot in his lower back to get a first down. I think it was 3rd and 19 or something like that. 3rd and 17.
Yes.
That sequence was just unbelievable for what a superstar. And the whole George Pickens narrative of not blocking and the way that he performed, and kudos to him for responding. That's the way a superstar plays football and a team leader plays football. Thomas, as a Vikings fan, you should be proud.
Yeah, is he 101 as we sit here right now next year?
Assuming Cousins is back at 100%, it's hard to say no, knowing that McCaffrey's going to be 28. I'm going to go back to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to go back to him yet. I might, but Tyreek Hill is making a pretty compelling case to be the 101 himself, and McCaffrey's going to be in the conversation.
Yep,
that's probably your top 3.
I wonder.
I don't want the 101 though, because they always get
right. No, it's the curse. It's the curse. Calvin Ridley is well, I was so relieved that I got this one right because I was very emphatic about it this morning. And he had 6 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was not easy for Calvin Ridley.
It was all in the second half.
That's what he does.
It was the epitome of garbage time.
Yeah, but still, he took advantage of the matchup. He always does that. Next week is Carolina. That's going to be a lot more interesting. Okay. All right, let's go to the tight ends here. I actually have no idea who Cole Kmet will be on here. Let's see. The best tight ends. Okonkwo. Okonkwo 1. Ingram, Njoku. Kmet's. Yeah, he's tied. All right. Okonkwo, Ingram, Njoku, Dalton Schultz with 14 points, 8
Schultz
catches.
got hurt in that game, right?
Juwan Johnson had 14 points.
Juwan Johnson, yeah, he's there too.
Logan Thomas caught a touchdown.
Logan Thomas is tied with Cole Kmet. So there's 4 guys tied with 14. Schultz, Jawan Johnson, Cole Kmet, Logan Thomas. But the top 3 performers are Chigo Okonkwo, who caught a touchdown pass from Derrick Henry, Evan Ingram, and David Njoku.
Njoku, by the way, kudos to him for laughing at himself for his terrible situation that happened to him a few weeks ago when he caught on fire. The Browns sent out like a Christmas card type thing on Instagram, and they have him standing near the fireplace. He commented on it. He goes, "Did you guys really have to put me near the fire?"
Wow. Good for him having a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
This is a somewhat boring list, I guess, but it was just weird that Cole Kmet got all of the production and DJ Moore got nothing.
Well, he caught a couple of deep balls.
Yeah, it was only 5 targets.
Which is kind of out of character for Cole Kmet, but still, he could have had an even bigger game if he had just stayed healthy. But he took some shots and had to leave early.
And let's not forget who's playing tomorrow, too.
Of course. You've got Likely, you've got Kittle, you've got Waller, Goddard, you've got...
Healthy.
Yeah, I guess does he still count? Does he matter? Is he good?
Well, that game doesn't matter. Michael Mayer's out. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll go over all the games. Let me do it. Do I have any almost touchdowns? Deontay Johnson was wide open for a long touchdown. Mason Rudolph missed him. By the way, did you guys think that it was poetic at all that Mason Rudolph? All right.
Who starts next week for them? That's a big story.
Oh, Pickett, if he's healthy.
If he's
How do you
healthy?
go back to Pickett?
I feel like Pickett wasn't doing that badly.
It's so much easier to start Rudolph, and if he stinks, you bring Pickett in.
It's kind of telling if they go with Rudolph over Pickett, though.
But you give him another week to get healthy.
Well, but your playoff hopes are still on the line.
Okay, and who won the game for them to get them?
Sure, Rudolph did that, but if Pickett's healthy and they start Rudolph, I think that's telling.
I'm starting Rudolph.
I think they should. I just don't know if they will.
I just think that it really was all about it being Christmas time, but fine. So we'll take a break and come back with our thoughts on all of the games from the weekend. We'll be right back.
It's still Christmas time.
I think there maybe could be a New Year's pun that I'm working on here with Kenny Pickett.
You keep working on it.
Okay, I will. Maybe something about a ball dropping. Do any of them drop a lot of passes? I don't know. All right, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football.
There's a lot of jokes that could be said right now.
Yeah. Buffalo 24 and the Chargers 22. And I think we'll just kind of, you drop
the ball on that joke.
Yeah. So what do you guys, are you worried about James Cook next week? He had 20 carries for 70 yards and he gets the Patriots.
Again, not enough to bench him outright, but depends on who else you have on your team.
Does he make your top 12?
Probably not. Depends on injuries.
I tend to agree.
Can't start Dalton Kincaid anymore, right?
No.
All right, what'd you think about Eckler? That was an encouraging game. Wasn't great, but best he's looked, in a while. Maybe, he probably looked good against Denver, but
he definitely performed well against
Denver again. So back to him.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Josh Palmer beat the waiver wire, 48% rostered.
Against Denver?
Yeah.
Not loving it.
No.
Okay. Pittsburgh 34, Cincinnati 11.
Oh, what's Romeo Dobbs' roster percentage?
70s, I think.
Yeah,
81.
Yep.
What game were we on? Pittsburgh?
Cincinnati, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, we saw what happens to the running backs here for the Bengals when they have the bad game scripts. They really want to run the ball, but they couldn't. 11 carries for Mixon. I don't know. Any major takeaways from this game, guys?
I mean, I thought the running back usage was weird. Only 6 targets to the running backs when last week why didn't they try and replicate what the Colts did? Maybe they just fell behind too far, too fast, where they couldn't give enough work to Mixon and Chase Brown. But I would have tried to have gotten them going a little bit more in the passing game. That's where they've made plays. It's where Browning has been making plays. And I felt like they just kind of asked Browning to make too many big plays for them. And he made the one to T. Higgins. But it was a little strange that they didn't use their running backs more. I wonder if they try and go back to that.
Well, again, the sort of the prevailing theory typically is when a backup quarterback hits their wall, they really fall off. And 2 or 3 games into it is typically when you see it. So Josh Dobbs, for example, it can look good for a couple of games, and then reality sets in why they're backups and why they're journeymen.
And yet you're the guy that's calling for Mason Rudolph next week.
I'm calling for Mason Rudolph over Kenny Pickett. And I'm not saying to start Mason Rudolph as a fantasy option.
I know, but the reality is going to hit Mason Rudolph at some point.
That's very true. It might, but I think for right now, I would ride the hot hand. Just like you got 2 good games out of Jake Browning after a dud. So I think for what you're looking at, we'll see what the Chiefs defense looks like coming off of this game Monday. But it's hard to say. Again, Mixon's in that James Cook, Travis Etienne canoe of you're still probably starting him. But yeah, they should probably get back to what they were doing with the running backs in the passing game. Certainly give Chase Brown some more looks too. He's much more explosive.
But the flip side to it, especially with this matchup coming up, is that their defense is terrible right now. I mean, losing DJ Reader, you saw Najee have a big game. So I would imagine that the Kansas City Chiefs will almost have a similar game script to what the Steelers had. And so I don't know if I can feel really good about Mixon next week. I think it's easy to start James Cook over Mixon, for example.
Yeah, no, I would too. I don't disagree with that. But again, remember we wrote off Mixon in the first game with Jake Browning, and then he came back and scored, I think, 2 touchdowns in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'll tell you who I'll start over Mixon next week is Isaiah Pacheco against the Bengals. Cleveland.
I think everybody was there on that one.
Yeah, I'm just saying he'd be a great guy to have next week. Cleveland 36 and Houston 22. So Jerome Ford finds the end zone. Kareem Hunt also scored a touchdown, but they did not have much of a running game. All right, Devin Singletary.
How about Jerome Ford scoring and not even getting 10 PPR points?
Yeah. This is a bad game script for Singletary, I mean, they were getting blasted, but next week they'll get Tennessee. A good chance they'll have Stroud back. Yep. So, we could see just a better offensive performance, obviously. But you think Singletary cracks the top 20 next week?
He'll be close to top 20. Almost certainly would be top 24. He just
tore apart this team 2 weeks ago. Absolutely, he'll be top 20.
Yeah, and listen, he had a long play called back by a penalty. So still is very involved. Dario Gumbawale had a snap share that was pretty close to Devin Singletary's. He dominated fourth quarter snaps. So just kind of a game script thing for Singletary where they rested him and he didn't play as much as he did the week prior, for example. I think Devin Singletary is absolutely in play. Having Stroud back helps a lot too.
Okay, how about Detroit 30 and Minnesota 24? The Lions, let me just, not a fantasy stat here, but the Lions ran 26 more plays than the Vikings, and they were outgained by 1 yard. Their defense is just not good enough. I mean, it's awful. Maybe they get CJ Gardner-Johnson back and get a little healthier. Sure.
That'll help.
51 plays, 7.6 yards per play for Minnesota, 5.1 for Detroit. Detroit gets a 6-point win.
And that was with Detroit losing Hawkinson and losing Addison. I mean, Minnesota
lost them both.
I know, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, but Addison happened in the first half, Hawkinson in the fourth quarter. I think fourth quarter. Second half for sure.
Third quarter.
Was it the third?
Pretty sure. Anywho, I don't know how you guys felt. I thought Goff played really well, but he only scored 16 points. I don't know what that means for you next week at Dallas, but he's efficient.
I'd still start him. I mean, that game has shootout written all over it.
But this game had shootout written all over it, and he only had one touchdown.
I mean, and you can run into the same situation where the running backs do a bulk of the scoring, which is always an issue with Detroit.
Yep.
And it's kind of been the problem for Goff on the road. Remember, he's had some good games where he's performed. Go back to week 1. He played really well against the Chiefs. Didn't have a big fantasy day.
He had a game like this.
Happens to him a lot throughout the course of the season. But, again, I think you see what Dallas's defense is looking like right now. They're certainly better at home. You can run on them, especially if Hankins isn't there. So take that into account. But I'm not getting I'm hoping my father-son league with my oldest son. We have Goff as our quarterback. If we advance, I'm not dropping him for somebody else.
Would you start Flacco over Goff?
No.
I think if it was an easier matchup for Flacco, I would.
I agree, but not next week.
How about Stafford at the Giants?
If we could get
Stafford,
Stafford, I would start Stafford.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, not a waiver wire thing, but just
Just if these are your quarterbacks, this is who you go with.
obviously Alexander Madison was not really healthy enough. He had 2 carries. Hopefully they give Chandler a little bit of a reprieve here because 8 carries for 17 yards. He did score, but didn't have it. Yeah, unless Hankins comes back, but sure.
No. Chandler gets the Packers.
Oh, I'm sorry, Packers. Sorry,
Mhm.
went to the wrong team there. Yeah.
Did you recover your document, by the way?
No. No. But I do email you all of the notes, so I think that's all in my email. I send you the notes. Jamie, you send them back to me. All those notes I
I
sent.
gotta go through my trash file.
I do all my game previews. I send you the notes. Thank goodness, and I'll be able to retrieve them from there. But that was a skit. Like all of my work for week 17 will be based off the week 16 document, and I erased the entire thing an hour ago. So that was really
okay. So we're gonna sit you in our computer function league.
I mean, I just had too many documents open, and I copied and pasted into the wrong one. Okay, nobody cares.
Hey, what do you do with KJ Osborne if there's no Addison and no Hawkinson?
That's a great because that could be the #1 waiver claim.
Could be. Absolutely. Against Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, we fell for this with Jefferson when he got hurt.
But that was Addison and Hawkinson were healthy.
It was when Addison and Hawkinson were healthy. So you got to see who's back if both are out. So it's not a bad idea to pick them up, clearly. But we got a game Thursday, we got a game Saturday, and everybody else plays Sunday. So if we don't know by Thursday, maybe you're playing Osborne. If we don't know by Saturday, maybe you're playing Osborne. We have an answer by Sunday, then he'll be in the number 3 receiver conversation. I mean, he had 2 good catches.
And they were like on back-to-back plays.
They were exactly back-to-back plays.
Yeah. So I don't know what you can count on moving forward. It's a messy situation, right? It's a bad quarterback, good matchup, should have good opportunities. Low-end wide receiver 3, low-end flex.
I mean, Brandon Powell made some plays too. They'll use
but he's like 8 PPR points. I'm not excited about Brandon Powell.
No.
Green Bay 33, excuse me, and Carolina 30. What do you think about Aaron Jones, I guess?
Jordan Love, big winner. The fact they did it against this team was great.
It was great. Absolutely. 3 total touchdowns. Didn't have to throw a lot. He followed the same trend that most quarterbacks do against Carolina.
3 of his top 4 receivers for a good portion of the game.
Kind of took a step forward again. Like this is the type of thing you want to see is your quarterback making plays and doing well without his best receivers there. He did that.
The fact that they almost blew this game though.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I thought that the game would be close. I thought it actually be low scoring. I picked the Panthers to cover. It was 5.5 that we picked it at.
Mm-hmm.
And as the game was unfolding, I'm like, oh my God, what an awful call I made. The fact that give Bryce Young some credit. This was his best game by far. He threw the ball really well.
I think the fourth quarter is worth a review. I think that he made some great throws downfield. Chark obviously camped out under them for a couple of big touchdowns. I don't mean to say that like they were bad throws. They were just good
great sideline catch.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Chark had some great plays down the line here. He's somebody that you could potentially look at. He had 8 targets, 6 catches, almost 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and this was Green Bay with Jair Alexander at corner.
That's true. And Jair Alexander botched the opening coin toss. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No. How do you botch a coin toss?
Well, you have to say.
Did he go scissors?
If you win the coin toss, you can either receive or you can defer. But he said we want the ball in the second half. I think he said, or we want to kick off or something like that. But if you don't defer, then you give the other team the choice in the second half. So if you say we want to kick off, you're going to kick off in the first half, and you're going to end up kicking off in the second half because the other team has the choice in the second half. They actually
I didn't know that was the thing. Interesting.
Yes. So you have to defer. So he went out there and he screwed it up, but the official was like, "You mean defer, right?" And then he corrected him basically. He almost cost him.
So basically, the official is the equivalent to you as a fantasy commissioner.
What did I do?
You allow people to correct their mistakes.
Yes.
So the same guy who guaranteed that the team would win out and then lost the Giants also screwed up the kickoff.
Yeah, and it was his first game back, and he went out there. And I think the way I read it from the ESPN story was that he's not even one of the captains. I don't think he was supposed to be out there, but he went out there and he nearly cost them a possession, but he did not.
Aaron Jones looked good, by the way. 21 carries, 127 yards.
But let me just draw this parallel, right? So Aaron Jones did great against Carolina, the same way Ty Chandler looked great against Cincinnati.
Yep.
The following week, Chandler plays a good run defense in the Lions. Next week for Aaron Jones, he plays the Vikings, a much better run defense than the Panthers. It was a really bad year for Aaron Jones going into this game. The metrics were just terrible. So, we're going to fall into a trap next week with him.
I think you have to start him as a number 2 running back. I think he's still going to get a good workload. There's definitely shootout potential. There's definitely Vikings turnover potential that could give a lot of extra plays and maybe an extra possession or two to the Green Bay Packers. You got to worry about A.J. Dillon swiping a touchdown from short yardage. That happened in this game. But I think Aaron Jones is going to continue to get a lot of work.
And the Vikings taking a hit on their defensive line, plus the fact that Detroit just ran right through them.
Give me a break, loser. Sorry, I just came across that in the mixer. Thought it would work there. Yeah, I think they really wanted Aaron Jones to score a touchdown. He kept failing. And then Dillon came in. And then after Dillon scored his touchdown, I think he went over and gave the ball to Aaron Jones. Okay, next game.
Love had the short area touchdown too.
Yeah. Next game is, by the way, Dave, I know you had some confidence in Adam Thielen, and he came through for you with 15.4 PPR fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta 29. Yeah, he scored, yeah. Atlanta 29 and the Colts 10. And it was just a tough game for Minshew without Michael Pittman, and no one really stepped up. But what about Taylor? I mean, it wasn't the most inspiring game. 18 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Any problems with him against the Raiders?
None.
I almost like it. He got to take some cobwebs off. Didn't get his normal, heavy workload. He played 63% of the snaps. And Sherman and Goodson mixed in and split up the Zach Moss role, basically. I think he'll get more work, and I think he's got a shot to do much better against the Raiders.
What'd you make of Drake London's dud?
Oh,
awful.
So frustrating.
Is it a Heineke thing? You just don't trust him with Heineke?
Well, we haven't seen it yet. This was the first game that they've actually played 4 quarters together, and it's 4 targets, 3 catches, 39 yards. And London had some great catches in the game, just didn't get the volume. Heineke was checking down a ton. 10 targets for Bijan Robinson. We saw Algier make a catch. Jonnu had 6 targets. A lot of those were short area throws. So Heineke really didn't challenge downfield that much. Maybe they felt like they didn't have to do it.
Kyle Pitts is having a pretty decent finish to the season. We'll see how that plays out in draft season.
Oh, my gosh. Just get a new coach and a new quarterback, please.
I understand everyone. I think the Arthur Smith hate is getting a little bit out of hand.
They don't use him properly. He's not a wide receiver.
They don't. I mean,
who's not a wide receiver?
Pitts. Play him at tight end.
What's wrong with letting him line up wide?
Because let him get mismatches on safeties and linebackers as opposed to playing on corners.
Does he line up out wide that often?
Too much.
I don't think it's too much.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there's definitely a size advantage if he's lining up against a cornerback.
Look at the Falcons roster. Are they supposed to be some great team?
When they're healthy,
3 players drafted in the top 10 positions.
They have a bad quarterback.
Yes,
that's
exactly
obviously what drags them down.
Get a new coach, get a new quarterback, and we will be in great shape with the Falcons.
But there were 16 carries between Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson.
Give me Justin Fields and Ben Johnson, and I will love everybody there.
Well, Ben Johnson, yeah. I mean, Ben Johnson's obviously terrific, but yes, that would be a big upgrade. But I bet if Arthur Smith had Justin Fields, I bet they'd be better also.
Maybe so.
Yeah, sure, because there'd be 9 players with 4 targets each, and now there'd be 4 guys with 8 carries each.
Cortland Sutton's been ruled out with a concussion.
Yeah, that's a shame.
That stinks.
Okay,
you may not have
Seattle,
him in the championship week.
Seattle and Tennessee. We've spoken about this game quite a bit. Tyler Lockett's so annoying. I'm sorry. Be good or be bad. Just stop. Stop with the alternating here. I don't know. Wow, Zeke. Sorry. Touchdown, Zeke.
He scored?
Yeah, he's caught a touchdown. Okay.
What he does sometimes.
All right, Hopkins. Here we go. If Hopkins, if Tannehill was the quarterback next week,
No, the answer is no.
at Houston. If Levis is the quarterback,
ultimate revenge game.
Who's
If
revenge?
it's Levis, then maybe he's a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, but he was so bad with the Texans last week against Texans.
Yep.
The bigger question is Derrick Henry, what he did against the Texans last week.
Yeah, I would not be very excited about it.
No, and look, for what it's worth, they did a good job against the Browns running game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, right. You saw Ford get the touchdown. I told you he didn't even have 10 PPR points. He averaged less than 2 yards per carry.
Yeah, and the touchdown came after the big play to Cooper in the first quarter.
Yep.
Daniel says, I'd rather play King Henry as quarterback. Yeah, he's not bad at that. He really is not bad.
I didn't do that every game.
Jets almost blew a huge lead, 30-28.
That was crazy. They were just cruising.
I think, was it 27-0?
Yep.
It was 27-7.
Here's one of the underlying storylines that may cost you your week is we hyped up what's the score right now of the game? Patriots game?
9-7 New England.
Okay, so the Broncos defense still doing okay. We hyped up the Bears defense. They fell apart late. Hyped up the
Packers.
Jets and Commanders to certain degrees. They were terrible, both of them. Bills couldn't keep the Chargers from kicking field goals. All the defenses that we recommended this week, in some way, shape, or form, either early or late, fell apart. Browns fell apart late.
Yeah. Who had a good game defensively? The Packers. I started the Packers in one league.
The Bucks.
Yeah. The Falcons probably had a pretty good game too. Let's see what else from this game. McLaurin struggled. He wasn't even that good with Brissett. They get San Francisco next week. I don't know. It may not be the worst matchup, but I can't imagine people can have too much.
You can't feel good about anybody.
Are you gonna feel good about Chris Rodriguez if he's
no? I can't feel good about him
against San Fran.
Yeah, no.
Chicago
27, Arizona 16.
They almost blew it. The
Kyler
Bears.
Yes, they did. 24 points for Kyler. That was nice. Anything on this game, guys?
He had a nice garbage time run at the end.
Oh, sorry. Let's talk about Herbert and Johnson because I really thought it made sense to go with Johnson. You had 3 weeks ago, you had no Foreman, and Johnson had a lot more work. So they have not been predictable for 1 second this season. And it happened again as Herbert gets 20 carries, Roshan gets 9 and 3 catches, and Herbert has a really big game.
I thought Herbert had a hot hand early, and that made all the difference. And so one of the things that we talked about earlier today was, well, Roshan's been playing third downs. It would make sense for him to keep playing third downs. And yes, he played the majority of third downs. But then maybe they could rotate a little bit who handles first down and second down. Ended up not happening that way at all. Khalil Herbert got off to a hot start, and they just rode him. And remember, they had this big 2-touchdown lead. They started trying to salt away the clock in the late third quarter. Like really awkward game management from the Bears coaching staff.
They're not used to that.
Yeah, it's almost like they didn't know what to do. And so like the fact that like Justin Fields is sliding in bounds and like there's 4 minutes left of the third quarter. They should be trying to put up points, and instead they're just grinding down the clock. And Arizona they had the ball down 1 score late. They could have come back and tied it somehow. They didn't. Bears defense was good enough then.
All right, but going into next week, maybe Foreman's back. He was out for personal reasons.
We don't know what it is, and I don't know if there's an update from after the game. There could be, and I just don't know it.
All right. So moving on to Tampa Bay 30 and Jacksonville 12. And
yuck.
For Tampa Bay, what do you think about Chris Godwin? It was a good game for him. Like not great, but 6 catches for 78 yards. And that's now 3 straight games, with double-digit targets.
Well, this was the first one where both him and Mike Evans played well, and that was good to see. With Rachaad White still being productive, so you can get great production from all 3 of the guys. We've seen that they're playing New Orleans next. We certainly saw what New Orleans defense looked like against the Rams, and with I'm going to assume several guys still missing. I don't think Lattimore is eligible to come back next week. So, in terms of Mike Evans versus the Saints, which is always a bad thing.
Yep.
I don't think you worry about it this week.
Maybe, yeah.
By the way, Schefter tweeted something. We joke a lot in our green room. Dave's usually part of this conversation about is Mike Evans a Hall of Famer. Here's the company he's now put himself in, along with the was it 9 straight years now of 1,000 yards receiving, or is it 10?
Mm-hmm.
Has he been?
He has 12.
Yeah, he's been around a long time.
This is from Schefter. 12 touchdown receptions in 5 or more seasons, joining Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, and Randy Moss. It's hard to say that he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame.
10 straight years with at least 1,000 receiving yards for the Galveston, Texas native.
And a Super Bowl ring. Never an All-Pro, I don't believe, but certainly building a very impressive resume. And he's not done. I think, I know we're getting to the offseason, but Baker has to come back if you're Tampa Bay, especially if they win the division.
Does Mike Evans come back?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if Baker comes back, obviously Evans has to love Baker. Look at the season he's had with him. And so, if you can get respectable contracts for these guys where it's not hurting your long-term future, because obviously Baker doesn't have the long-term appeal that you like, and clearly Evans doesn't. If they come back, it's a pretty good combination, and Godwin as well. So you got to feel good about where the Bucs are right now. I know, again, prisoner of the moment if you want to go that route, but it's been now 3 straight weeks of Baker looking great. He's got 80 fantasy points in his last 3 games. I mean, that's incredible. Offensive line is held up. The run game has been fantastic this season. So they're peaking at the right time and probably saving Todd Bowles a job. And you got to put Bowles in the conversation as coach of the year too.
I wouldn't vote for Bowles for coach of the year, but he's doing a good job.
He's put himself at the back end of the list.
4 sacks today. I think some of that had to do with the offensive line that they were going against Jacksonville. I think that offensive line is just in really bad shape right now. And it might end up sinking the Jaguars season. But secondary played, I guess, a little bit better. First half was better than the second half.
Sorry, I just want to get a fantasy question, and then we'll go to our last game. We'll wrap things up. Do you trust Chris Godwin next week against the Saints?
Yes.
If you're expecting what he gave you this week, yes. 2 games ago, no.
All right. And Miami 22 and Dallas.
Who just did to them?
Yes, I did. Miami 22 and Dallas 20. And Tua, wow, just really limping to the finish line. 17 points. Again, I don't think he played poorly. I think he played really well last week. I think he played well this week. He's not getting the fantasy points. And when you never, ever, ever run, you need to score touchdowns. He's not doing enough of that. So he's for next week.
He had a rare missed touchdown on the opening drive that Tyreek Hill may have scored on. And
he had a couple of misses in the game.
That Tyreek usually makes that play. The problem with Tua, this is going to be a problem for him in his career. He doesn't make plays off script. He's gets what's available for him. And that's not a bad thing. Please don't take that as a bad thing. But he just doesn't, when things break down, and this is to your point, Adam, he doesn't run. So when things break down, like the plays at the goal line, when his first read is not there, it's like a panic. And, that could also be, with the offensive line being the shape that it's in. But it's almost like, and he goes through his progressions. There's nothing about that. But it's just like when his receivers aren't open or not on, he's not comfortable with what's there. It's like he just doesn't get you. And this is a real life thing, just doesn't get you production.
He doesn't do it consistently enough. I'm sure there's examples where he does do it.
But it's few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, you'd expect the great ones always come through when a play breaks down. Think of Mahomes and all the times that he's come through. And of course, he's not even close to that level. So I get what you're saying. I thought the touchdown to Mostert was an amazing play design.
Yes, again, that's what they do.
Right.
As a Mostert guy, you could see it developing, and I was like, throw it to him.
Yeah,
but
yes,
I didn't really. I have a terrible memory. I don't remember a lot of game-winning drives for Tua or moments like that in his career. So I thought that was one of the real defining moments of Tua's career, was marching them down the field. Not like he did so much on the drive, but going out and winning that game, I thought was pretty big for his resume, really, because I just don't think he's done a lot of that, really, in spots.
And they got Tyreek going in the second half. It was a little bit of sluggish first half. Obviously, Jalen Waddle in and out had the big 50-yard catch to start the game, which you thought, okay, here's going to be a big game for Jalen Waddle, and disappointing with the 2 separate injuries. Next week's going to be really telling, because if Mostert's out, how much do they put on Tua? Because the run game may not be there to save them. And so I don't know how many people can feel comfortable starting Tua next week against Baltimore. If Baltimore comes out of this game playing well against the 49ers, which is hard to say anyway, but you can't feel like Jordan Love to me is an easy start over Tua, even with the receivers being banged up.
All right, guys, good stuff tonight. Merry Christmas, everybody. Jamie and I are going to record a little FFT in 5. And good luck in all the games tomorrow. And we'll talk to you, no Beyond the Box score, but we will talk to you on Tuesday with the Waiver Wire on Fantasy Football Today. See ya.